Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to what are the limits of human survival. And I think this video is just going into different scenarios like being underwater, holding your breath, and just things like that, which I think is going to be pretty interesting. I saw this just pop up randomly the other day and I saved it for when I got back from my holiday, and yeah, I just thought it'd be an interesting reaction. I don't know if it's going to be copyright or something because I searched on YouTube and no one else has reacted to it, so maybe this is going to be a Patreon reaction because it will be blocked, but we're going to check this out, hopefully going to enjoy, and yeah, survival myths debunked. We're going to see some of these things. I don't know how accurate they will be, but I guess it's just going to give a general idea of the possibilities of what the human body can do and how it can withstand certain things, but let's jump into this.
Today, we're going to look at what scientists have worked out to be the very limits of our survival. How hot or cold can we go? Is the survival rule of 3 true? What's the longest we can live? If you think—
Wait, the survival rule of 3. Let me see that. So it's no water for 3 days, 3 minutes of no air, 3 weeks no food. It's crazy how the differences in the importance of water and food. Obviously, you learn this when you're younger, but it is crazy how just how much more important food and water is than food.
What's the longest we can live? If you think you know your breaking point, think again. However, we do not encourage anyone to attempt to match or beat these limits.
I'm Stu, this is Debunked, where we sort the truths from the myths and the facts from the misconceptions. Let's start all the way down at the bottom of the scale.
Okay.
How cold can we go?
This is all down to our core temperature. Unfortunately, the human race isn't built for the cold, having evolved in the hot climates of the African—
I love cold, but not really built for the heat either. I know, obviously, we sweat, right, which is the human, it's our way of adapting to the heat. But in the grand scheme of things, you get sunstroke, you get this, you get that. You need some sort of protection, even as a human. I mean, I guess it depends maybe by ethnicity and like the place that you live now. But for me, I love the cold. Obviously, the extremes of cold I wouldn't like, but I'm a cold person, I can't lie.
savanna, our bodies are designed to displace heat rather than retain it. So take away our cozy fires and thermal underwear, and what temperatures can we handle at the lower end of the gauge? Survival here is about protecting your core temperature. This usually sits at around 37 degrees Celsius, but when your body is cold and loses heat faster than it can make it, then your core temperature can start to reduce. If it drops as little as 2 degrees Celsius, then hypothermia will set in.
Oh wow.
This sequence of events usually follows. At 35 degrees Celsius, you will experience shivering and pale skin as your blood is diverted from your extremities. At 30 degrees Celsius, you'll fall unconscious. At 25 degrees Celsius, you'll go into cardiac arrest.
Wow. Fuck me, that was a loud bite. I mean, that does make sense because the human temperature is there's a very fine point that it should be at, but 35 you can hit hypothermia.
By 24 degrees Celsius, you'll most likely be dead.
As with many of the body's limitations, however, there are exceptions to the rule, with some survivors going far beyond the norm. And this survival story changed medical history.
While skiing, Anna Baggenholm fell through a sheet of ice and was dragged underneath by a mountain stream. She became trapped under 8 inches of ice for around 80 minutes, causing her core temperature to plummet all the way down to 13.7
Wait, what?
degrees Celsius. Inevitably, Baggenholm experienced cardiac arrest, but she didn't die.
How?
Before the freezing temperature stopped her heart, the constant flow of ice water had already chilled the vital organs and specifically her brain to such an extent that the oxygen demand was significantly reduced,
Wow.
meaning they needed very little O2 to survive. Although Baggenholm was clinically dead for more than 2 hours, the low temperature preserved her brain and vital organs before her heart stopped beating, and so delayed her cells from dying. And incredibly, this allowed medical staff to revive her.
What?
Not only did Baggenholm go on to recover, but the results of her survival story went on to change medical practices and introduce the use of therapeutic hypothermia, where the body is cooled down to a mild hypothermia as a technique to protect patients during open heart surgery.
Really? So this actually led to medical advances in surgeries and stuff?
As well as victims of strokes, liver failure, and epileptic seizures.
That's crazy.
13.7 degrees Celsius remains the coldest anyone has ever been and survived.
Well, who's the guy who got the world record for sitting in ice for the longest time? I don't know how cold he would have got then, but like, there's people who do some crazy like challenges and survive, right? I guess some people have just a really good mental strength where they can control. Is that like a thing? You've got such a strong mindset that you can control your heat in your body better. Probably not, because I guess there's a point where you are so cold it doesn't matter. But I guess your mental state will help deal with that sort of stuff. But yeah, there's that guy who sat in like the ice and just stuff like this. Like, there's people that do crazy things.
Though not quite to that extent, but a reduced temperature is exactly the condition you need for our next question.
How long can we hold our breath?
Most people
For me, probably like 40 seconds.
find it tough to hold their breath for more than a minute, but as a rule of thumb, the limit for the majority of us will be around 3 minutes. Much more than this, and you're dicing with danger. However, there is a specific technique that trained freedivers employ called static apnea, whereby you hold your breath face down in chilled water without moving. This method was employed by the current world record holder, Stephen
Is that 11 seconds? Oh, that makes me cringe just thinking about it.
Misford, achieving an impressive 11 minutes and 35 seconds. But this has since been superseded by a confirmed but unofficial record of 11 minutes and 54 seconds by Branko Petrovic.
What the
So, what's the science behind this technique? Termed the mammalian diving reflex, when you submerge your face in cold water, outer blood vessels constrict. Blood is directed away from your extremities and toward your heart and brain. This reduces your heart rate and the rate at which oxygen is pumped around your body. In addition to this, trained breath holders, as they are called, hyperventilate prior to holding their breath. This is because your brain monitors the level of carbon dioxide in your blood. Rapid breathing purges your body of CO2 and delays your reflexive response to take a big gulp of air.
So is Petrovic's 11 minutes 54 seconds the limit of what the human body can be pushed to?
Physiologist Johan Anderson thinks not.
Elite breath hold divers expect the limit to be extended to about 15 minutes before record setting will level off.
What?
Interestingly, you can nearly double your time by taking a breath of pure oxygen before, a record held by Alex Segura when he hit 24 minutes and 3 seconds.
That doesn't make any sense. How? So obviously, again, a breath of clear oxygen. I guess it's just clear, basically just the best possible oxygen to breathe, right? That is insane.
In 2016.
But going back to temperatures,
How much heat can we handle?
For me, anything over 40 degrees for a good hour and I'm done. I am done. I was in Venice, right, and I got back 4 days ago. On the last day, we sat in the sun. We were on the beach for like 2.5 hours before we had to get the plane. And I burnt like crazy. I burnt so much. And that was 2.5 hours. So, and that was 30 degrees. It was not 29, 30 degrees, which is hot, but like, come on. 40 degrees, I'm screwed.
In comparison to the cold, humans, having evolved in them, are pretty well adapted to surviving hot climates, with insane feats like the Badwater Ultramarathon taking place every year.
David Goggins, an absolute machine.
This 135-mile, 217-kilometer race takes place in California's
How long?
35-mile Water Ultramarathon taking place every year. This 135-mile, 217-kilometer
Mile? Oh my days.
race takes place in California's Death Valley
Oh my
in
God.
temperatures of 53 degrees Celsius.
Why? What? That is insanity, man. That is insanity. You're really pushing your body to the limits that I cannot even explain.
127.4 Fahrenheit. That's only just shy of the hottest temperature ever recorded on Earth in the same place. The amount of external heat you can endure very much depends on your individual physiology, exertion, and hydration, among other factors. But ultimately, the general consensus is that a very humid 60 degrees Celsius, 140 degrees Fahrenheit, is the limit of our survival. The humidity plays a part as it slows or stops your sweat from evaporating away, making you even hotter. Within 10 minutes of being in this environment, your core temperature could be raised to 40 degrees
See, nah, I'm good, man. The idea of that is horrible to me.
Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit, or above, resulting in severe hypothermia. Your organs will start to shut down, and if untreated, you'll be dead.
Hypothermia? Wait, so it works both ways. It's just hypothermia if you react to heat or cold.
However, the highest recorded core temperature was that
Mate, I've got to shut the door. I've got to shut the window. Too loud outside.
of Willie Jones, who was admitted to hospital during an Atlanta heatwave, with a body temperature of 46.5 degrees Celsius, 115.7 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
He spent 24 days in hospital, and incredibly, he survived.
Fair enough.
The environmental temperature dictates the answer to our next question.
How long can we go without water?
This
Yeah, this obviously is dependent. If it's in 50 degrees, probably what, 10 hours max? Maybe even less than that?
varies dramatically
probably.
depending on the scenario we put ourselves in. If we were doing some pretty strenuous exercise on a very hot and sunny day, then you could be losing 1.5 litres of water each hour. If you don't rehydrate, your blood volume decreases, and in turn, your blood pressure drops. Your blood then becomes thicker and stickier, and will be harder to pump around your body. Your heart rate then has to increase to compensate. You'll actually stop sweating, making you even hotter while you continue to dehydrate.
Oh, mate.
This scenario would see you dead within a few hours.
Wow.
Alternatively, in a cool environment with very little exertion, you could last around a week. But as a general rule of thumb, under more normal circumstances, a person could
Wait, you could last a week? Really?
But as a general rule of thumb, under more normal circumstances, a person could survive 3 to 4 days without water.
You can go 100 hours without drinking at an average temperature outdoors. If it's cooler, you can go a little longer. If you are exposed to direct sunlight, it's less.
Andreas Mijovic, however, beat this life expectancy by quite a stretch, when he was mistakenly locked in a police cell and forgotten about for 18.
Huh? Is this legit as well? Was this like tracked and everything? 18 days with no water, and I assume no food either.
Days. Although there is some controversy around this record, as it's alleged he survived by licking condensation off the cell walls.
Oh,
Surviving
mate.
without food, on the other hand, is quite a different matter.
How long can we go without food?
In this scenario, it actually helps to be obese in the first place.
Because your body just feeds on itself, right?
A study published in 1973 at the University Department of Medicine in Dundee recounts the case of Angus Barbieri, who weighed 456 pounds. Barbieri was monitored as he fasted all the way down to 180 pounds.
Wait, he didn't eat
For an incredible 382 days.
That cannot be real. That is ridiculous.
Under medical supervision, Barbieri had consumed only 0-calorie drinks and vitamins for the duration of the fast. But being fat only helps you survive for such a long time without eating if you have access to enough vital water-soluble B vitamins, which help metabolize your fat stores. Without these, your survival rate would be considerably shorter, and it would be perfectly possible for someone to die of starvation and still be fat. Gandhi's 21-day fast is often cited as the standard limit for human survival. He survived only by taking sips of water. Other cases of food starvation, whilst receiving adequate hydration, have recorded individuals surviving between 46 and 73 days. These, among other cases, were taken into account when the British Medical Journal reviewed human starvation in 1997. They surmised that the survival time for a well-hydrated individual is 30 to 40 days, with severe, possibly irreversible symptoms kicking in between 35 and 40 days. and death occurring from 45 days onward. Essentially, the amount of time someone can survive is affected by factors like body weight and composition, genetic variation, other health considerations, and the presence or absence of hydration.
But no matter how much we eat or drink, we can't keep going without rest.
I'm still trying to comprehend how someone went 383 days without any food. That, I know you've got vitamins and stuff, but that is mental.
How long can we go without sleep?
Sleep seems to have lost its value in today's overworked and overstimulated world. But when the sleep debt becomes too great, it can be dangerous.
When sleep deprivation becomes great enough, the effects mimic those of psychosis. The failure of the scientific world to recognize this is due to some extent to the folklore that has grown up around the sleepless marathon of high school student Randy Gardner in 1964.
Randy Gardner got himself into the Guinness World Records by staying awake for an incredible 264 hours.
Oh.
That's 11 days.
Flipping hell. See, I've had days where, like when I was younger, say I would sleep, my sleeping pattern would be terrible. So I'd have one day where I would try and stay awake until the next night, and I would sometimes successfully do it to then sleep early and then wake up relatively early, you know. But when I would do that, I'd always have these moments where I'd have like, I think called like nano sleeps, where I would just fall asleep, doze off quickly, and keep doing that for like probably like half an hour. Just keep doing that. Maybe not that long, but yeah, like getting that point of tired after what, 35 hours maybe, is something that, yeah, I don't like to think of experiencing ever again. And this man went 264 hours. What the fuck?
The reports of the feat mainly surmised that Gardner's mental health remained stable throughout the challenge, enough to even beat someone at a game of pinball on day 10. However, Lieutenant Commander Ross from the US Navy Medical Neuropsychiatric Research Unit monitored Gardner throughout the challenge, and his report tells quite a different story.
A delusional episode, increased memory lapses, fragmented thinking, paranoia. His mental abilities were diminished.
These patterns are similar to those experienced
How much would you sleep after going 11 days without sleep? Would you just sleep for like 2 days straight? So because your body's just so exhausted. Would that be possible?
by others who have taken part in sleepless marathons and studies, concluding that prolonged amounts of sleeplessness will lead to serious mental symptoms. In fact, Guinness World Records no longer lists voluntary sleep deprivation as a record, so as not to encourage any further.
Yeah, why would someone want to take part in one of these things where they test how long you can't sleep for? That sounds like hell.
Attempts. But there have still been recorded challenges to this title, with the longest stint hitting a whopping 449 hours. That's nearly 19 days.
Why?
Whilst Gardner was observed to have made a full recovery after his time awake,
Only needed 14 hours of sleep to catch up, and then he got up and went to high school. Wow.
sleep deprivation will eventually be fatal. While there are no recorded instances of people being forced to stay awake long enough to kill them, there is a disease called fatal familiar insomnia which completely stops you sleeping and appears to be the ultimate limit.
That is hell. Imagine that, you just pass away because you just cannot sleep.
With victims dying within 3 months.
As we're investigating survival, it only makes sense to find out the maximum human lifespan.
How old can we get?
I'm going to say 130 right now is our limit, but it's probably just going to go up, right? I mean, I don't think anyone's lived to that far, but I don't know, maybe 120 is our limit currently. But I feel like that's just going to go up with time.
The limit to how long humans can live is a controversial one, with many credible studies contradicting each other.
Some scientists believe that there is a finite age, one that humans cannot age beyond. Having trawled through the international database on longevity to identify trends, expert on aging Dr. Jan Vijk claims that after decades of significant increases in human longevity, the maximum age slowed in the 1980s and has now stopped, with the upper age limit being 115 years old. Dr. Vijk's team admit there will be the occasional anomaly, but
You'd need 10,000 worlds like ours to have the chance that there would be one human who would become 125 years old.
When this finite age was published, it sparked fierce debate among the scientific community. A more recent study found that so long as you reach 105 years of age, then the risk of dying plateaus. What does this mean? Well, let's rewind the clock to someone who is 50. At this age, they are 3 times more likely to die within the next year than someone who is 30, aging to 31. By comparison, someone who has managed to live all the way to 105 is just as likely to live to 106 as someone who is 120 living to 121.
Really?
Their chances of dying no longer go up.
What?
Also, statistically, the number of people who are now hitting 105 years old is on the increase. Co-author of the study, Professor of Demography and Statistics, Kenneth Watcher believes,
That's strong evidence that if there is a maximum limit to human lifespan, we are not close to it yet.
but far from a standard human trait, it has been suggested that this plateau may instead be due to a survival of the fittest type consequence, leaving the toughest to live through their hundreds. And the toughest nut of them all was Jean Calment from France,
122. What?
who set the record for human longevity in 1997, when she hit the ripe old age of 122.
Stay tuned for a bonus fact about survival after death.
But first, thanks to our audience for their survival level. If you enjoy sound quality audio and join writing sessions. Incredibly, this isn't the saw Bagenholm return from the dead after 2 hours. Incredibly, this isn't the longest time recorded between death and resurrection.
What's the longest we can survive after death?
In 2008, it was widely reported that when Velma Thomas suffered a heart attack, doctors tried everything to revive her, even using the techniques learned from Bagenholm's experience by inducing hypothermia. But for 17 hours, no brain activity was detected. According to Velma's son,
Her skin had already started hardening. Her hands and toes were curling up. They were already drawn. There was no life there.
Was her heart still beating though?
with no pulse, blood
No pulse for 17 hours. What? Excuse me? How has she managed to come back from the death like that?
pressure, or measurable brain activity, the decision was made to take her off life support. But just 10 minutes later, as doctors were removing respiratory tubes, Velma moved her arm, coughed, and then just woke up. Dr. Eggleston, who treated Velma, said,
There are things that as physicians and nurses we can't always explain, and I think this is one of those cases.
remember to check out
How the hell has that happened? God, this was a really fascinating video, I'm not going to lie. Let's appreciate the fact that he uses Celsius as well as Fahrenheit. Fun fact, as of May 2020, the oldest woman alive is a man... The oldest human alive is a man from Japan named Kane Tanaka. What a name, by the way. Aged 117 and 149 days. Is he still alive? Passed away last year. So it would have been, what, 119? Yeah, flipping hell. Damn. Fact, humans can eat lava only once. That's very true. You know, we were all once the youngest person in the world. That's a very good point. Actually, was I? I don't think I was, because I was a twin. Yeah, actually, I was. It's weird. I don't know, it's a weird one. But yeah, hopefully you found this interesting. And yeah, this is a fascinating video. If you want more from the channel, let me know. Hopefully this is able to go on YouTube, because again, I've seen no people react to this channel on YouTube, which may be because they just block the reactions or whatever. But yeah, that's that, and until next time, peace.